Good afternoon and welcome to today's press conference with Sporting Kansas City. Thanks to all the media for joining us both here in person and virtually via Zoom. We'll be joined shortly by Sporting Kansas City's new President of Soccer Operations and General Manager David Lee, as well as Sporting Kansas City co-principal owner Michael Illig. A few quick reminders before we get started. If you'd like to ask a question here in the room, we just ask that you raise your hand so we can bring you the wireless mic. For media joining via Zoom, if you can use the raise hand function, we will call on media members via Zoom after questions here in the room are completed. At this time, we're joined by Sporting Kansas City co-principal owner Michael Illig and Sporting Kansas City's new President of Soccer Operations and General Manager David Lee. We'll start with opening remarks from Michael, followed by opening remarks from David.
Cool, thanks Kurt. Good afternoon everyone, I appreciate you being here. Today is a meaningful day for Sporting Kansas City. I'm grateful to share it with you. Sporting Kansas City is stepping into a new era. For nearly 2 decades, this club was defined by stability and an identity that became part of who we are. That era gave us trophies, traditions, and a strong foundation. And now comes the responsibility to raise the standard, to push this club forward, and to earn back the trust of our supporters. We knew this hire would be the single most important in the history of Sporting Kansas City. That is why the process had to be thorough. Over the past 6 months, we evaluated 14 candidates. We brought 4 of them to Kansas City, and we measured them against 61 criteria, everything from roster building and cap management to youth development and academy integration, to analytics, sports performance, and leadership. We owed it to this club and to our fans to be thorough, objective, and uncompromising. Out of that process, one candidate rose above the rest, and that is David Lee. His record speaks for himself, identifying and recruiting talent, building winning rosters, developing players, and shaping cultures that sustain success. He brings a modern age in analytics, applying data in every decision we make, identifying and recruiting talent, improving player performance and wellness, planning rosters with discipline, and strengthening pathways that connect our academy, our second team, and the next generation of talent to the first team. With David leading our soccer operations, we enter this new chapter with clarity and ambition. Our philosophy remains grounded in who we are: collective effort, relentless drive, and a deep bond with Kansas City. But we are also committed to evolving. We will modernize how we scout, develop, and prepare players. We will strengthen the pathway from our academy to Sporting KC2 to the first team. And we will build a roster to not only compete in MLS, but across every competition we play: Open Cup, Leagues Cup, and CONCACAF Champions Cup. David will also lead the search for our next head coach. That coach must embrace our identity, commit to developing players, and use every available tool, from analytics to sports science, to build a culture that can deliver championships. We will be deliberate, and we will not settle for anything less. To our supporters, we know these past seasons have not met your expectations or ours. We hear you, and we feel it too. And we promise this: we will work every day to earn back your trust, to bring pride to Kansas City, and to keep painting the wall. So with that, it is my honor to welcome David Lee and his family to Kansas City. He has complete responsibility for our soccer operations, and he has our full support. This is a new era for Sporting Kansas City, ambitious, accountable, and determined to raise the standard. With that, I'll turn it over to David.
Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you to everyone who's come to the Compass Minerals National Performance Center, and for those all joining online. I couldn't be more thrilled to be the President of Soccer Operations and General Manager for this incredible club. I have worked my entire career to have an opportunity like this, and I'm truly grateful to Mike, the wider ownership group, for their belief in me to lead this club into the future. I had been part of New York City FC for 12 years, and it was always going to take something really special for me to leave that club, and that is precisely what exists right here. The reasons why I believe this is the right opportunity for me start with the very, very proud history that Sporting Kansas City has. They've won championships. You can feel it when you walk around the stadium. You can feel it when you walk around this training facility. The history of success in a league that is only 30 years old is unique. You can see the moments where they have painted the wall. And that is really, really something that sings to me, and one of the reasons why I started to be really interested in this opportunity. As Mike mentioned, the results over the last few years haven't been what this club, this organization, this fan base desires. The opportunity to be part of that turnaround, to hopefully lead that turnaround and bring this club back to the glories that it experienced years before, is another part of the reason why I wanted to join. I like building things. I like creating short, medium, long-term strategic plans and working with people to enact those plans, and that's exactly the opportunity that I have here. I mentioned people. As I spoke to a number of people as I went through this process for this role, one of the most consistent things that I heard was what a fantastic group of people existed here at this club already. There is no one person that can do this job alone. I am here to lead. I am here to lead from the front, but I need great people around me that can help me do what we need to do to get this club back where it belongs. And so hearing about the amazing people that work behind the scenes, the players, the staff, the people at the stadium, the incredible fans, was something that meant I really, really, really wanted to come here. I wouldn't be here without Mike. In every interaction I had with Mike throughout this entire process, his belief, his commitment, his desire to do everything possible to get this team back to where we both want it to be was ultimately the reason why I said yes to this project. I am so thrilled to have ownership support and Mike's support for what we are going to do in the short, medium, and long term to get this club back where we belong. And ownership, stability, support, and everything they've given to me through this process has been unbelievable for both me and my family. Beyond all those factors, the number one reason I am here is because I want to win. I would not be here if I didn't believe that we had an organization, the support, and everything that we could possibly need when you walk around these incredible facilities to make sure this organization wins. We know that will take a lot of work. I am ready for that work. But I want to win. I have been fortunate enough to win and lift an MLS Cup trophy. This organization has an even longer history of winning trophies. And there is nothing that makes the challenging days that you have, and in pro sports, there are challenging days every single year, win, lose, or draw, that make it more worth it than when you win and lift trophies. How we do that, Mike mentioned modernizing our sporting organization, investing in analytics, ensuring our pro player pathway is developed and integrating players from our academy, revamping how we scout and ID and recruit players to this amazing organization. I'm going to have to get under the surface and look at all of those different disciplines to try to make sure we do everything we can to move this club forward. We have a lot of work to do. I am really excited to get to know everybody connected to this club, and the club that is so ingrained in this amazing community. Me, my family who are here today, can't wait to make Kansas City our home. Today's the beginning of a brand new era for Sporting Kansas City, and I cannot wait to get going.
With that, we'll open it up for questions from media here in the room. We'll start with Daniel Sperry from the Kansas City Star.
Welcome to Kansas City. Just first and foremost, coming from New York City, obviously the the background maybe of City Football Group kind of owning and being a part of that club. What enticed you maybe about moving away from that structure, and what about Sporting Kansas City kind of provided that, maybe for you personally, that feeling of kind of stepping outside of that kind of umbrella group that exists there?
Yeah, I think they were very different propositions. You go from having global football conglomerate with 13 clubs around the globe to a highly passionate, committed local ownership group that want this club to succeed, and that was something that really attracted me. I'd spent 12 wonderful years at New York City, and I do want to make clear, I loved my time there. I was really happy, and I wasn't looking to leave. It was this opportunity that really struck me as something that I didn't think I could pass up. I truly believe this is the best job in the league. When you look at every single factor that this club has, from facilities, from ownership, and so that for me was the main reason why it piqued my interest. And the more conversations I had, the more interested I got. And ultimately, when I first got the phone call from Mike to say that I was the guy that they had picked, it was a very happy evening in our house.
David, can you describe your background in analytics? I mean, it seems like that's a major part of what you do now. Like, when were you first interested in it? And then it seemed like a major part of your college studies, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, correct. So I think I'm going to date myself a little bit, but a long time ago, my start in soccer was as a performance analyst. So they are typically at that time, data and statistics was still relatively in its infancy, but it was using information, writing scouting reports, video analysis was my starting point in soccer. And so I did that for probably 5 or 6 years in professional organizations. That's how I originally joined MLS at New York Red Bulls. In New York City, slightly different. I became onto the player recruitment side. And I think what we have done, or what we've tried to do in New York that I'm excited to bring here, is we try to create an evidence-informed environment. How are we making decisions? What information are we using to help make those decisions? How can we create models that can help us make better decisions? And so really over the last sort of 10 years, the advent of analytics has grown. It is going to grow even further with AI, and we're going to have to figure out how we can be ahead of the curve in innovation. But I really want to make sure that we use information, data, to help make more informed decisions throughout the entire club. And that can be academy, that can be first team.
Do you anticipate then hiring a staff to do that as well?
Yes, I do. I think that will be something that we've spoken about through the interview process. I think it's something that we don't have right now. And so that is definitely a short to medium term plan to ensure that we can build out a staff to deliver the data analytics level and capability that we really want to. And I think we have the support of ownership group to go and do that and invest in that to make sure that we can use it most effectively.
And Mike, you mentioned the term earn back the trust of our supporters. Wonder if you could expand on that.
I mean, I think the messaging hasn't met the results in the prior season. So, we're saying different things, meaning them, and I think we need to deliver on those things. And that, when in our world, you can't have trust without transparency. I think from us sitting up here, you're going to have a lot more transparency as to what and how we're doing things.
Back here, guys. You mentioned we'll lead the search for a new head coach. I'm just curious what your qualities you're looking for in a new head coach, and if the interim coach right now, what do you like the qualities out of him that he may have a chance at this?
Yeah, so we're kicking off that process now. I'm very conscious I'm on officially day 2 on the job. I think the qualities we're looking for as a head coach, I've got experience hiring head coach as a CSO in New York. We've hired 3 coaches, 2 external, 1 internal promotion. I think the qualities that we're looking for, you need to be a leader. As a head coach, you are the person alongside myself that will lead the day-to-day environment at the training facility and lead our players. We want somebody that's committed to playing the way that we expect the team to play. So we're going to have fundamental principles that we aspire to play in attacking, high energy, creating lots of chances, possession-based soccer. And so we're going to look for a coach who can deliver against some of those principles of play. You mentioned Kerry as interim head coach. I had a conversation first time with Kerry after I arrived yesterday. I think if we've said if Kerry is interested in the role permanently, then he will go into the process that we will run. But we will run a deliberate and clear process with clear criteria of how we're going to make a decision on who we think the permanent head coach should be. And if Kerry's interested in that role, then he will be part of that process, absolutely. He's been part of this club for 25 years, is an absolute legend here, and so he deserves the opportunity if that's a route that he would like to go down.
And not only with the coach, obviously the players as well that are here with the squad selections and everything of that nature. Just what are your assessments from bird's eye view, if you will, being far away from it, about Sporting KC, the players they have, and what are you looking for in the qualities of that too?
Yeah, so I think, as you mentioned, I've done a lot of analysis from a distance. I'm now getting to know the staff, the players on a more personal level. I think it is going to come as no surprise the roster needs to be improved. The roster needs to get better, and it will get better through the next transfer windows. That is a clear objective for me and for us and for the staff, is to improve the roster. I think there are good pieces in the team, and I think when any new person comes in, you get the opportunity to show a different side for each player, and they get the opportunity to impress somebody else. And so I'm looking forward to having more conversations with our players. I think there is a wide range of qualities that we're going to look for. Most importantly, for me, is going to be people, players that want to be part of this organization. This organization is going in a direction, and we need the players bought into that direction. And if they're not, then they're probably not the right fit for us, even if they're an excellent player. And so there's going to be positional characteristics based on the positions that we need, but we'll go through all of that when we have some more time post-season.
And David, again, congratulations on
you.
coming here to Sporting Kansas City and Kansas City overall. As the leader, what do you think is maybe the first goal in kind of changing the paradigm of the team? Because I think fans are going to be looking for immediate change, and that's not fair. How would you describe like the first month or two being here in the job?
Yeah, so there's a lot of, if I look at my first 4 to 6 weeks, and I had a meeting with the staff this morning to explain, there's a lot of learning I need to do. Anytime you come into a new organization, I need to be able to understand what's happened, the reasons why things have happened. I will probably ask a lot of questions of people to understand what processes are in place already. We obviously have decision day coming up in just under 2 weeks. We're then going to have player option decisions that we need to go through. So I think the first thing is to give a clear direction of where we are heading to both staff and players that remain here. And then the work starts. We have staff that we need to hire. We have departments potentially that we need to build, and we have players that we're going to need to sign. All of those things are labor and time intensive, and they are going to take my full focus and energy over the course of the next 3 to 4 months until we get into preseason in January of 2026.
Kind of following up on that, and by the way, welcome to Kansas City.
Thank you.
How do you prioritize that? I mean, there has to be some logical steps, like you need a helper first, or do you extend somebody who's already in a spot? Or I mean, how do you focus on this? How do you prioritize that?
So I think if I was prioritizing, I still would say coming to a decision on permanent head coach is decision number one, because I think that could change some of the profiles and players that you might be looking for in January. It will not change entirely. I've always gone through a process where we involve the head coach always in player recruitment decisions, but the club has to own those decisions. I have to sit and own the player decisions, and that is done in collaboration with a coach. I think the starting point, the first is, we have a roster, they all have options or contract decisions that may need to be made. We have to start with that. And when we get through those decisions, probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks, then we will be able to then figure out, okay, that leaves these holes in the roster, and then we can prioritize based on the positions that we need and how important we think those roles will be. So it's still slightly too early to prioritize this position versus that position, this profile versus that profile, but we're going to get there really soon, and we've already started that work.
And you said you've done some preliminary analysis. You've looked at this roster. I'm sure you know the salary cap, the GAM or TAM or whatever is out there still available.
Yeah.
You know that. How fast of a big turnover, and plus whatever has been allocated from ownership for, DPs or U22s, how fast do you think you can make a large turnover to this roster? Is it 1 window, 2 windows?
Yeah, I think we can do it quickly. I think there is a reality that one of the hardest jobs in MLS in my position is to move players on who have a guaranteed contract. Normally those players that you want to move on are not hugely desired by other teams in MLS or in the outside world. That is not the case we have here. We have a number of players that are either out of contract or in options, and that gives us some uncertainty for the players, for sure, but a lot of flexibility going into 2026. It's another attractive part of this role and this job at this moment, is that I could get to step in, make those decisions, and that should, based on the decisions we make, which are not final, enable us to have more flexibility going into January. Now, depending on the number of positions we need, it is very difficult to sign potentially the number of players that you may need in one transfer window. But I believe we can make this roster better in January, and that will be the goal. We need to make this roster better in January and give with the flexibility that we have, that should be possible. It is going to take a lot of work, and we need to be as precise on our decisions as we possibly can, and that is going to be my focus.
It wasn't long ago you were making the decision for a permanent head coach in New York. So how much, I guess, does that help this process that you just went through this process less than a year ago?
It definitely helps, for sure. I was really proud of the process we went through that I led 12 months ago to bring Pascal into New York. I think we've seen the positive results that he's been able to bring, and so to be able to replicate some of that, we may not have access to the same data and information that we had to help make that hire, but we will use every resource that we can, and we will consult in where we need to enable us to get the information that we need. So I was really proud of the process, but that doesn't mean the process can't improve. And so I've already got my list of things that if I was doing it again, I would add these steps into the process, and that's what I'll be bringing to this decision over the next weeks.
In your role in kind of overseeing all the soccer side top down, what are your principles of soccer that you want to instill, and how much of that also depends on the head coach that you're working with? I know formation doesn't always mean your style of play and your tactic, right? But how much of that conversation and those principles that you'll establish for the club are tied to what head coach you're working with?
Yeah, so I mentioned I believe in having principles of how we're going to play. So one of the principles will be we want to be a possession-focused team. We want to be a team that dominates possession. We want to be a team that creates a lot of chances. We want to be a fun team for fans to come and watch. We want to be a team that tries to win the ball back quickly defensively. Now, those are really broad terms that coaches can interpret slightly differently. I don't believe in having a formation. I don't believe in having this is how we must play outside of the principles. And I will hold the head coach accountable to meeting the principles, but within that you give them a framework where they can bring their genius. Head coaches, when you hire the right ones, they are absolute geniuses, and how they work with the players is so inspirational. It's a job that I could never dream of doing because it is so difficult, and you want to give that space in order for them to bring their own ideas within the framework that we set as a club. And that's how I believe the most effective way of building a club. Part of that is the head coach's job. We have had more head coaches in New York in our 10-year history than this club has had in their entire lifespan. We have been able to maintain a level of consistent success, playoff qualification, points records overall in the league, partly because we have consistent principles. But all of the head coaches that we've hired have had slight interpretations of how they want their wingers to play, slightly more inside or more outside. And so then it's my job to adapt the roster to meet those slight tweaks based on a head coach coming in. But it shouldn't then mean that you're needing to replace entire rosters because you're only making tweaks based on a head coaching hire.
And then coming into the roster build, I mean, I'm just curious. We've seen New York. Obviously, you've brought in players that have been transferred on for quite large sums. I mean, Sporting has one really large outward transfer in a player that they developed and brought through in Busio. But how much of that being able to be transactional in the way that the league has become transactional and picking off some of these players in South America, Brazil, Argentina, bringing them here and transferring them on while finding success on the field, but also helping kind of do that? Like, what is your plan for trying to do that here in Kansas City, and how do you kind of start that process here?
Yeah, for me, it should be part of our ambition as a club to participate in the global transfer market. There's a number of reasons for that, and there is one that comes back to winning. If you transfer players, you can take extra allocation money. Extra allocation money comes into the team that helps you build a stronger team. It is the most effective way to build allocation money, and allocation money is critically important to be able to have the strongest roster you can. And so developing players that have a value on the transfer market is something that I believe is essential. I think we're very fortunate to have some very talented young players already in the team. And I'm excited to go to Swope and check out the academy and spend some time with them tomorrow to see the next pipeline of players coming through, as well as use international markets to try to support that with other players that we think can develop and have value. So I think it is important. Ultimately, we want to win. Player development can be seen as against winning. And I don't believe those two things have to be opposite ends of the spectrum. They can coexist. There is natural tension that exists when you try and develop players and you want to win, but it is my job to hold that tension for Mike and the wider ownership group and try to build a roster where there is players that are developing, players that are capable to play right now and help us win, and players that we believe can be future assets for our club. And I have to try and manage all of that, and that comes down to roster building, pathway analysis to make sure that when we think those young players are ready to take on a bigger role, they're not blocked from having that opportunity in the first team.
You mentioned just having recently gone through a head coach that you still were critical of your own process. I examined at least that own process and wrote things down. Or if you could offer any examples of just maybe what you learned in retrospect.
Yeah, certainly not critical. I think the process was excellent. I just think there's never going to be a perfect process. And so for me, I think there's always things to learn. Whenever we make a decision, we should have a process where we are reflecting on that process and determining some things to add. So, I think there's the possibility to do some slightly more psychological profiling of head coaches, of how they are as a leader, to ask some of those questions that came through naturally through my interviews. But I think there's some scope to add that into the process. I think there is also the possibility, I'm now in a different organization with different ownership group, different demands, different people. And so I think having the opportunity to bring people here, make sure that they understand who and what Kansas City is and Sporting Kansas City is going to be critical to that process as well.
And Mike, I wonder if you could speak to just the length of the contract. 7 years obviously stands out.
Yeah, I mean, we're to build the future. You got to bet on yourselves and bet on him, and that's what we're doing. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward contract. I mean, is the question about the term or the?
No, just basically what you said. I mean, obviously it shows some faith on someone who hasn't been part of your organization before. Just wondering what led you to want to lock up on that length.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a no-brainer. I mean, we believe we have the best guy in the league sitting right here today, and it's just like when you have a great player, you want to lock him up for as long as you can, and that's what we feel like we've done here.
David, I wonder if you've been in the league for a while. Just your state of MLS, what you've seen, the changes throughout, and where the league is right now. Anything that you like or don't like about where generally everything is, with enough teams, expanded enough, all that kind of.
That's a loaded question. Oh, that one can get me into trouble. Okay, so look, from when I joined the league, I think the growth of the league over the 15-ish years that I've been part of it is truly exceptional. It is truly exceptional when you see where this league is. When I first worked at Red Bulls, the types of players that you were signing, the money you had to sign them, we are talking a totally different prospect that you have now. I believe the league can grow quicker, and grow far more potentially than it already has done. There is no doubt that the league has the potential to be one of the best leagues in the world. I think it is fair to say we are not that right now. There are leagues in Europe that are ahead of us. That is why players want to go to those leagues. That is okay. I think we obviously have an enormous opportunity with the World Cup coming to this country that you only get once in potentially a lifetime, maybe twice in a lifetime if you're really lucky. And I want to see the league push and grow to enable us to continue to sign even better players, to get better quality in front of our fans, and that's something that I would like to see the league do, and may potentially do a little quicker than we have done so far.
David, following up on Todd's question, where do you see a quote-unquote smaller market team like Sporting Kansas City fit in the current structure of the league you were just talking about? Challenges, opportunities, et cetera.
Yeah, so I've never looked at this as a small market team or a small market opportunity. This is an enormous club with an incredible fan base, and that has a history far more than some of the bigger cities in terms of success. And so, it is going to be a change. I haven't tried to pitch a player on coming to Kansas City yet. I have done that regularly for New York. And so, I need to learn about how and what we offer to a player based on who they are, their age, their family situation, the pathway, all of those pieces. But this club, I've been here for 2 days. I cannot imagine a player coming here, seeing what they have to work in that is light years ahead of almost everything else I've ever seen in MLS. It is truly remarkable. And that is an enormous selling point, I think, for players to come and continue and develop their careers. And so I am sure there'll be challenges that I don't yet know, and I'm not sure what they are. But all I see is opportunity and positivity that I believe I can go and sit in front of any player, and I'm 2 days in, and I believe I could sit in front of any player and try to convince them that this is the right place for their career. And then it'll be my job over the number of years, particularly for a young player. One of the reasons we were able to sign successful young players in New York was we demonstrated an ability to move them. And once you do that, the next one becomes easier, and the next one becomes easier. And so that's going to be something that that we need to have in our toolkit to be able to go and do that, and that will come in time.
David, with the roster reconstruction and rebuild you'll need to do this offseason, and some of those options you'll need to make decisions on, are those decisions that you'll have to wait to make until you have a permanent head coach in place?
No. We will look to make those decisions. I think we've got a huge amount of knowledge in the building with Kerry, with Mike Burns, with all the support staff that have been around. So I think, I've only been able to do analysis from afar for the last couple of months. But now I'm in a position where I get to experience it every single day. But no, we won't wait for the player contract decisions to be made. We'll look to make those as quickly as we can postseason.
And how much do you expect this coaching hire to potentially define what your legacy could be at this club?
Talking about my legacy on day one, that's a good question. Look, hiring a head coach is absolutely critical. It is. It's the most important hire that I will make, and I probably have quite a lot of hires to do, but that is the most important hire we will make. It deserves all the diligence and effort that Mike and everybody went through for this hire. I'm going to need to do the same in a very short period of time to make sure we try and get the head coach, because there is no CSO, general manager, president of soccer that can do this on their own. The coach is out there with the players every single day. It is the most critical hire. And so, I believe we will have a process that will find us the very best candidate. But if we hire somebody, and we figure out that it isn't the right fit for whatever reason, 2 years, 3 years down the line, or we hire a fantastic head coach, and that coach gets attracted by another opportunity that we had happen multiple times in New York. Okay, that's part of the game. That's part of life. And we move on, and then we replace that coach. And because we have, and I will build an organization that can withstand some of those things happening. The structure is what will enable us to continue to be competitive year over year, as best as we can in an MLS competitive balance environment that we know is difficult. Sorry, too short.
Hello. So you mentioned about the great facility that this club has, the great fan base, but what do you think this club needs to be seen as a contender again?
I think we need to improve the roster. I think we need to improve the roster, and we need to hire the right head coach. I don't think any team in MLS should consider themselves far away from being competitive every single year. The rules and the structure create competitive balance every single year. I showed a slide to the staff today. In the last 4 years, at least 7 out of the 18 teams in the playoffs were new every single year. This year it's currently 5, it could be 7. So that's nearly 50% of the playoff pool wasn't in the playoffs the year before. There are 6 or 7 teams every year that increase their points total by 12 plus points, which is probably likely what we're going to need to do to get ourselves back into playoff contention. That happens. It happens regularly. We need to be one of those teams that make it happen. And so for me, even if you look back at the last 3 MLS Cup winners, they were not in the playoffs the direct year before they won MLS Cup. No team in MLS should feel like they're that far away from competing. Of course, there is a lot of work to do to make sure we are one of those teams that has that type of season, but that's the work now, and that's what I'm excited for.
And one question for Mike. So what is the commitment from the ownership group in terms of improving the roster and getting back to the top?
He'll have in terms of any availability of any roster category, DPs, TAM players, U22s, as we've done in the past and will continue to do, he'll have our complete support to invest in each of those silos how he wants to.
We'll take one more question here in the room, and then we'll have one question online via Zoom.
And Mike, I just wanted to tie into what David said, how he wants to be a possession-based team. This is kind of the build-up to the World Cup year. It really sort of starts today. How important is the 2026 year going to be for the Sporting Kansas City organization as the eyes of the soccer world will be on Kansas City for the World Cup?
It's huge. I mean, it's an incredible question. We look at the World Cup. I mean, listen, our league was founded after the World Cup in '94, and was a tremendous launch pad for the founding of our league. We look at the impact the World Cup will have not only to our league, but also to our city as a massive moment. And if you look at the roster flexibility we have now, it was intentionally designed that way because we anticipated things happening at the league level that would allow a new roster investment model to take shape. So when we were awarded the World Cup and the conversation at the league level started happening around what we should do as a league to change or modify that, I wanted to make sure that the roster was flexible to do so. Here we sit today, flexible to do so, probably not in the circumstances we anticipated, but being relevant and winning next year while the World Cup is here is important.
Our next question will come from Zoom. It's with Chad Smith with the Kansas City Soccer Journal. Chad, your line is open. Chad, we're not able to hear you here in the room. If you wouldn't mind, if you could put your question into the chat, we will ask it here with the wireless mic. While we're waiting on that, a couple quick reminders for media. We do have food and drink available outside after the press conference wraps up, and we will do a quick photo op up on the stage if you guys want to have your cameras ready with both Mike and David. Question just came in from Chad Smith. The question is, David, in New York, you were part of a CFG, City Football Group, that you'll no longer have that infrastructure behind you. What challenges do you see about building your own structure here in Kansas City?
Yeah, look, being part of City Football Group was a privilege. Getting to see that group grow from when New York City FC was acquired in 2013 originally. I joined in 2014, and we were the second team as part of that group. Undoubtedly, there's benefits to being part of City Football Group. There are, but I think there are benefits to being part of an ownership group and a team where you are only focused on one team, and so we can make decisions that are only best for Sporting Kansas City. And so that's something I'm actually really excited for. It was one of the drivers for me to want to take this opportunity because I got the opportunity to take maybe a step outside of CFG. I've had almost 12 incredible years there, and now I get the opportunity to apply some of those learnings and some of the things that I've been able to do there and bring them to this organization. And so, having a little bit of a blank slate on an analytics department, for example, I've seen what a global organization is able to do when they invest in analytics, and now I'm really excited to be able to think about how we can do that on a really local level where the benefit of any investment we make into analytics is designed to improve how Sporting Kansas City works.
David and Michael, thank you very much for the time today. We'll do a quick photo op to wrap up.
Thank you.
Thank you.